Hello and welcome to Scriptcase by Jamie. I am Jamie, of course, and today, well, before we start or come back with Macro Fridays, I thought we would go over the 8.1 to 8.2 upgrade of Scriptcase. And of course, there is a video of this over on NetMake, but as usual, I feel that there's something missing. So I thought I'd go over a complete upgrade for you and go over how you can actually make sure that your backups recover, because if you're like me, then maybe you will have a lot of projects, and of course maybe you have imported a project from Scriptcase or one of my projects, and in those cases maybe your backups will be pretty damn humongous. So let's dive in, shall we? So hello and welcome back to Scriptcase by Jamie, and today we're checking out the 8.1 to 8.2 upgrade or / migration, depending on how you see it, because of course we need to migrate our Scriptcase projects over, and at the same time we are performing an upgrade to 8.2 of PHP. Now, of course, there are some major differences between 8.1 and 8.2, and this is also one of the many reasons why NetMake takes some time to actually upgrade from various versions of PHP. And with the version of PHP 8.2, there are some major improvements as well speed enhancements, let's say. So once you have upgraded from the current version of Scriptcase to the latest version, well, you will notice a major difference. So the differences that we have here, first of all, now we have some core differences with 8.1 versus 8.2. So with 8.1, you have properties, for instance, which are read-only. And with 8.2, you have entire classes which can be marked as read-only, which is pretty important. And at the same time, we have dynamic properties, and dynamic properties within 8.1 are allowed by default, and this can actually cause typos. And this dynamic properties with 8.2 is actually depreciated, so you will in fact receive a warning message. So that is also important to note. There is also a difference with types, security and randomness. So with types we have support for intersection types with 8.1, but then with 8.2 we have DNF types, which combine intersection as well as union types. Now that may be important to you. And we also then have, of course, the security, which I just mentioned, which is a standard stack trace for 8.1. Now with 8.2, that comes with sensitive parameter redaction. So essentially, it hides your passwords, which is pretty important, right, for security and everything. Now with randomness, we have the old rand function, and with 8.2, we now have a new random extension, which is in fact much cleaner as well as safer to use. Now you may be wondering why else you would want to upgrade, and well, there are quite a few important reasons other than the ones that I just mentioned, and those would be, first of all, code integrity, if what I just mentioned didn't give that away already. So in 8.1, for instance, you can accidentally create a new property by, say, misspelling. So for instance, we could say this user ID equals 1 instead of actually user ID. So we could spell user or misspell it, for instance, and well, that would then give you some issues, right? Because you're not having the same USER underscore ID. It would be maybe USRE underscore ID, which would of course be misspelled. Now in 8.2, that starts stopping this entire function. Your code would basically stop, and it depreciates dynamic properties. Now this would make your script case or your custom PHP projects much harder to break with very simple typos, as for instance the USRE underscore ID instead of user ID, and that would then, well, it will continue working. It would give you less issues and less bugs, which is great. And of course, we do have various ways of actually upgrading from 8.1 to 8.2, and it would really depend on whether you're just using Scriptcase or whether you would be deploying your project somewhere. Now, if you deploy your project on a hosting environment, you will more than likely have the option to configure your PHP version, and there you can then just change within the checkbox or within the drop-down menu, typically change from 8.1 to 8.2 or 8.0 to 8.2 or whatever previous version you had there. So if you still are using a really old version of Scriptcase, say 7.6, then it's high time for you to upgrade to this latest version. And of course, if you need help with that, give me a shout. I'll be happy to help you with an upgrade as well as your license. That is not a problem. Now, other than that, you may want to make a few adjustments to your Scriptcase environment beforehand. Now, it is very important to back up your project. And you see here on my screen right now, I'm actually going to refresh this and log back in again. So if I log back in here, now this is my local version on this machine right here, and I do have a comparison for another machine that I have running where I actually have a load more projects in there, and you're going to see the size difference between those backups. And like I said, if you're anything like me and you have a lot of projects in there, you've downloaded a project from the Scriptcase channel or from my own channel or from the members area, for instance, then of course you may have some issues with those backups. So I'm going to show you really quickly today how you can actually deal with that and make sure that your backup works properly. So right here I just have one project, which is the Landman version 2, and I have 43 applications here. Now this is not the latest version because the latest version actually has around 120 applications, but this is just what I have here on this local machine right now because I've been using another version for this. Okay, so to give you some idea, the first thing you would want to do is first of all come up here to your settings, well, your options, and then settings. And then from here, you can then go to backup. And then you can create your backup. So here, for instance, I would say Landman or SC version SCV8, say 080.282, for instance, and keep that then as the name. So you can adjust the name here, and then you just click the process button. Now I've already gone through all of this and I have my backup available, and I'll show you that in a few moments, as well as the other backups that I have created on one of my other machines, because I've copied them here so I can show you. Now, before you actually create your backup, in those instances where you have a lot of projects you've downloaded and installed or restored projects that we have within the members area or over on the netmake/Scriptcase channel or my channel, whichever, then you may have a slight issue. And that would basically be, so let me come to that, the size. So if I come here first of all to my downloads, now you'll see here that I have at the top here the Landman, and that is the export from this single version of Scriptcase. Okay, so this is the Scriptcase I'm running right now that I just showed you, and then below that I have 3 extra copies here. So the first one I exported ended up being 1.363 gigabytes, and that is quite hefty, quite big. In fact, if you upgrade to the latest version of Scriptcase, that will give you an error. Straight away, it will, well, PHP will time out and other things will happen, but that's okay. The process wouldn't complete. You may end up with some folders somewhere, but your projects will not become available for you, and I know that can be quite frustrating. And then you see here I have actually gone and created 2 more backups, and then you see the size difference already. So here I have 991 megabytes, so just under a gig, and then 943 megabytes, and it's very easy to decrease the size of your backup. Now, in general, if you have a lot of projects with your Scriptcase environment, you shouldn't have any problems. But the fact of the matter is, some of these projects that not only I've created or imported from the channel and other places, well, they have a ton of images. And lazy developers just don't compress their images, which is pretty shameful, I must say, because it would save us a ton of time as well as space. Now, I'm not going to go through the entire process because, well, I'm going to show you, of course, but the reason why I created those backups before, because that actually took me a few hours to go through this entire process. So one step at a time, creating your backup. Before you create your backup, you want to come into one of your projects. Whatever project that is, I will just use this Landman right now as an example. And then up here, we have our layout. And within layout, we have themes, buttons, templates, responsive menu themes, our tooltip themes, image manager, chart themes, and editor templates. Now, you could go ahead and remove a load of those themes that you have from other projects. But the most important one you will find will be your image manager. So within this, you will have uncompressed images, which some developers thought it would be a really good idea to add to their projects and, of course, decrease the speed of their project. Yes, the platform will slow down because if you're loading a 10 meg or 5 meg or even a 1 meg image on a slow collection, then, well, you're going to feel it. The platform will slow down. So highly advisable, any images you add into Scriptcase for your project or any project, whether that be Scriptcase or a simple PHP project, Laravel or whatever you like, always compress your images. Now, before I continue, there is a very good website for that, and I can't remember exactly what it's called, but here it is, squish.app. Go here, drag and drop your image on here, and you will then be able to compress your image as well as then improve the size of it. So that when you come here into Scriptcase and you add your project in here, you will not end up with massive images, which of course clog your Scriptcase environment as well as slow down your developed project. Now, who wants that? So to continue with your backup, what you want to do then is come here into your images, go to your options, sort by file size and descending. And once you've done that, you will have the largest images all at the top here. And then we can just go through and then we can actually delete many of these that we want. So I'm just going to select all of these images here and just go through like that. And then we can go ahead and then also delete them. Now, I do wish NetMake or Scriptcase, whichever, would add an extra option here to select all images or, select a whole load of them a lot faster than this very slow process, because like I said, with those 3 examples of backups I had, that took me around 4 to 6 hours literally in deleting images, which was no fun. So I hope at some point we do get some improvement here within the image manager and we can remove these massive images and also chunks of themes and buttons and whatever else that we don't really need just because we imported a project to check it out from either the channel or here, of course, on our channel or the members area. Now, at the moment, this is the only process or the only way to actually do this. And as you can see, I'm just going along and removing a whole load of these. Now, as you go on, you will then, of course, end up with a lot less images. Now, over in my other environment, I had over 1,000+ images in there. Now, many of those, well, they're quite small, so it's no big deal. But then you have PNGs, which are full-size backgrounds, and literally they're around 5-10 megs, some of those, which is pretty crazy. It really blew up the size of my backup. So that's one of the processes you may want to take before you create your backup. Now, note you don't only have background images, you can leave the button images, because generally here, not many people add button images in here, so you can leave those as they are, but then you also have the general images. And there you just want to do the same thing again, file size descending, make sure it's like so, and then you can go ahead and once again, delete a load of these images that you are not going to be needing, and you'll find there are templates in there from invoices. GIFs and PNGs and everything that are just massive in size. And just by doing that, you will decrease the size of your backup, just like I had done right here, because as I was saying, I had reduced then the size of this backup just by simply removing images. And then with the 1.3 gig version that I have here, the backup will fail, or should I say, the recovery of your backup will fail, which, as you may know, would be pretty damn depressing, right? So you don't want to mess around there, just remove those images and all the other images that you don't need or so forth, just organize by size, and that way you get all the largest ones within the first couple hundred images in most cases, and you should decrease your size just as I have done so here. Now once you've done that, you can then go ahead to your settings and create your backup. Okay, just like that. Again, add a name in here, so a temp name SC8282, and then I can just go process, and we can actually see what difference that those few images have made now to my backup, because as I showed you, I had one backup there, and that is then already created there. So here I'll go download, let's save that, and that was pretty quick because yes, it's just one project here, so we can actually do this pretty quickly today. So there we have, from 23 meg down to 16 meg, just with those few images that I have actually removed there. And that is of course quite important when it comes to your backups, especially if you one day want to recover from them. So go ahead and perform that in your Scriptcase environment before you go ahead with the upgrade if you haven't done so already. And if you have, then maybe an alternative is also good, because once you've done that, you may still want to make adjustments to your PHP.ini. And so if I check here in my downloads, as I said here, I had an upgrade, one of my backups here, 943 meg, which is nearly a gigabyte, right? So to make adjustments to the Scriptcase PHP.ini, you want to come here to your program files, and then you set here your netmake folder, which is right there. And then here you'll have your Scriptcase environment. Now before I do that, I'm going to download the latest version. So let's come here to the scriptcase.net website. And we can then go ahead and download the latest version of Scriptcase, because I haven't, as you see, I haven't actually installed it here yet. So if I go download, and then I want to come down here to the Windows version, 64 bits, 9.1 free installer, and that has here the PHP 8.2. So if I click on download, and I'll just add my santa@claws.com email address, which of course does not exist, and then I'll click download, and that will then download the latest version of Scriptcase for me. Okay, so while that is downloading, we can then of course prepare or continue deleting images from our Scriptcase environment, which would then make a big difference for the installation. Now once that has finished downloading, which it has now, you can of course go ahead and install. Now you may want to go ahead and delete a load more of your images. That is of course down to you. Now one other thing you will need to do is actually get a new serial number for your Scriptcase environment, and you can do that by coming here to the scriptcase.net website and then accessing here the login page. Then off you go, sign in, and you will have all of your serial numbers here. So I have all my serials here under serials, and then just here on the right I can request for a new installation. Now what you will want to do is access your Scriptcase environment and hover over your admin, and then here you have the serial number that you will want to renew. Of course, in my case, I have a few serial numbers there and many old ones as well as some new ones. And for that, I would want to make sure that I request it for the current version or the current version of Scriptcase that I'm actually wanting to upgrade. So before we do that, let's go ahead and install then the latest version. Now we will come back here to the folder. So if I go there and then come here to my downloads folder, I can then double click on the Scriptcase version 9.13, which is the latest version, and that will then go ahead and start the installer for me. Now, you may get some antivirus pop-up thing, and I really hated Avast because it's pretty sucky. And of course, it's going to go ahead and scan that for me because it's a pain in the rear, and it says it's a suspicious file. Now, that is not the case, okay? So in general, Scriptcase does advise you to disable your antivirus client while you make an installation. Now, if you're like me and many other people on the planet, you're just not going to do that for various reasons. Because it's an antivirus, right? And you wouldn't want to have a virus there. So then when you're ready, you have then the installation. You can then go OK, and it tells you here you could get errors during the installation process, and in general it should be fine with the most cases. Now if you do have problems, then you will want to go through the uninstall again, disable your antivirus, and then go through the installation. Now, during the installation here, we have the install directory, and note that it does say 8.82 here, so v9-php 8.2, and we can just go ahead and install that, and that will then work with the current version you already have. So you have the previous version and then the latest version, and you have them both side by side. Now, it is important to note that they will not both work. The reason being is you are going to create a new serial number, replacing the old one. So that will in fact remove access for the old version for you. You can, of course, go back and forth by generating a new serial number, and that will then allow you to use the other one again, but then again locking you out of the latest version. So before you have gone ahead and registered the latest version that you are now installing, you will want to make sure you have your backup done and that you are ready to actually go ahead with the process of re-verification, let's say. So creating a new serial number and adding it into Scriptcase. Okay, so as you see, Scriptcase is installing and unpacking all of the files required for Scriptcase, as well as the extra drivers I had selected for the database. Now, once you have done that and Scriptcase is ready, you will end up with another login page. And of course, it takes a few moments, and we're nearly there already, and we're installing now the shortcuts, and well, we should be pretty much done now. Oh, some more drivers for the Microsoft ODBC SQL drivers. Okay, there we go. They are also being installed. Again, the latest versions of those would be installed. And we should nearly be ready now with our new installation of Scriptcase. So we could open the README. I won't bother. And I'm not going to bother opening the Scriptcase version yet, because I actually want to open it also in this same browser. So I'm going to apply that there and just change the port number from 8.2 to 8.3. So 8.2 being the original one that we have over here. So this is localhost 8092, and then this one is localhost 8093. So now if I log in here, we will have our initial access here where it says for the first time log in with admin, and we have 20 days to actually add our serial number. So as it says up here, expires in 20 days. So I can close that up, and then from this point onwards, I'm pretty much ready now to return back here to the settings, and we can come here to restore, and I can choose the restore zip, which I'll just choose then again the landman that I just exported, and that is the 16 meg version, so missing some of those images, and with that, of course, speeding up the restoration. So here we go. And then we can choose then to overwrite or do not restore if duplicates, and there should be no duplicates. It's a fresh installation, so we can just go ahead and process, and that will then restore the landman version 2 that I have over on the current local Scriptcase, and here I can then have that applied. Now as you see, your project may not be available as it is right here for me now, and there is a simple reason for that. And that is access rights. Okay, so if I come up here again to options and settings, I can come here again and see projects, and here I have the project that is available. And if I click on that, I can see the administrators, Jamie O and admin, and those are then the admins of this project. Now it's not available for me for some reason, but it's very easy to change. Okay, so if I come back here to users, I can see then here via edit, the project is here available. So if I just check that project, that then will become available for the current admin user. And that is very important because otherwise the project won't be there. You will want to make sure all of the other options here are enabled for administration, giving you all the privileges to create tabs, create applications, make adjustments. So once you've done that, just click save and make sure the projects that you want to give access to the admin user or whichever users you like are then located also here in the right hand panel. Once you've done that, click save again. And now if I go close the settings and refresh, I can log in as admin and I have the Landman version 2 available. Now generally, because it's already available for admin, it should be already there. But this is also something I had noticed on my laptop when I actually gone through this upgrade process again, that the projects were not available. So I just checked them to make sure that they are available for the admin user. Now, as it says here, we have the new version released, meaning there is also already an upgrade for this new version. So I will come here to settings again, go to Scriptcase update and click the update button. This will then download all of the latest files for this new version of Scriptcase, which is something you will want to apply. And if you're not sure about that, we will check that in a few moments because we do have here the change or check the change log. Okay, so here in the change log, you'll see here on the 30th of February, which is a few days ago, we have some extra feature, well, a new feature added, as well as some bug fixes for the latest version. Now, once you're ready, just go click search for updates, and Scriptcase will then go ahead and update your Scriptcase environment. Now, I will apologize in the meantime for any rough sounding that I have, and if I leave any coughs in the recording, because I was just pretty much recovering from a few days of having a cold, I think. Definitely not a flu, more like a cold. But that's what you get when you're riding around in the forest, chopping up wood, getting soaking wet, and then not thinking that you want to dry off and get warm really quickly. You just carry on, because that's what men do, right? Okay, anyway, so we should be good now with the updates. Usually it doesn't take long, and that also depends on how many updates there are. Now, it is important to note for the updates that it connects to the Scriptcase server, it scans the files, it then retrieves the latest files, and those are then available to us. And we have then 6 files found, so we can download and install those, and done. So just like that, we now have the latest version of Scriptcase. Now, thankfully, I was successful in restoring this single project. But as I mentioned already, you may have 20, 30 projects there, as I have in one of my other environments, with a gig of images. And then, of course, you may have some issues with the PHP, basically, because PHP is set as a default right now. So we're going to go through a couple extra steps here now to make sure that, if anything, you can make sure that you can install your Scriptcase environment, update your Scriptcase environment, as well as then adjust your PHP.ini if needed. So if I come in here to the PHP version 8.2, which is now the latest version, the one that I just installed, access then here the components folder and then the PHP folder. And if I scroll down, we have here the PHP.ini. So if I right click on that and if I say open with Notepad, let's say, I have then here my Notepad, and then I'll just scroll down here and we can make some adjustments to this. Now, you can change various aspects of this if you wanted to. For instance, you can log the errors, you can display the errors, you can do all of those fancy things if you want to. I'm not going to go through most of that now. Most importantly now, it's just a case of increasing the timeouts and so forth to ensure that if you do have a 1 gig backup like I do there, then maybe you will want to make some adjustments here, because in those cases, PHP will give you an error message within Scriptcase, and you don't want that. Okay, so I'll keep on scrolling down here. So we find here, first of all, the first option that we can change. And we have here, first of all, the max execution time. So this will give PHP a time limit on how long in seconds it will process your backup. And of course, in many cases, 3,600 seconds is not a long time. So we can add 1, 2 zeros there, and that will increase that time, allowing Scriptcase to process your 1 gig backup. At the same time, we have the max input time. Now, 60 seconds, this is again in seconds, and we can just add 1 or 2 zeros there, and that will increase that maximum time the scripts are allowed to, again, to process your backup. You have the memory limit here. Now, typically, 1024 meg is more than enough, and generally, I don't see the need of changing that in any shape or form, so we'll just leave that as it is. We'll continue scrolling down, and again we have display errors on, startup log errors off, so again we can make changes here to log those errors and so forth. That is entirely down to you. Now, I would advise in those cases, if you want to make changes, you do have 2 versions of PHP.ini within your folder here. You have the development and the production. Check those 2 out, make comparisons, and you'll see the difference of how the PHP.ini is configured. But for now, we'll just carry on scrolling down. For now, we have then here the data handling, and then here we want to maybe adjust also the post max size. So that is set to 1024 meg, which, well, should do, but then again, we can adjust that, add a couple of zeros on there, and that way, well, PHP will accept post data with such values, and that is something you would want with a 1 gig backup. Okay, so that is very important to note. Now again, you can change other options here, such as your user directory, your document root. You can change the extension directory. You can make all those changes right here within the PHP.ini, and that will make some changes to Scriptcase, as well as allow you maybe to have further debug information within your applications. Now we have here also another option that we want to change, and that is the maximum allowed size for uploaded files. Again, we have 1024 meg, and I will add a few zeros there so that we can have our 1 gig or plus backup without any issues. Now you do have temporary directories here that you can also define. Sometimes that is a good idea. It will really depend on your own setup. Now in mine, I just leave it as default, and it's pretty much what's recommended really. Now I should also note before we finish up, most of the extensions here are enabled. If you need any extras, you can just enable or disable them by removing the colon or adding a colon in front of them. But now all of those that are, well, enabled right now, so without the colon, those would more than likely be required by Scriptcase. So if you do disable those, then maybe that functionality will stop working. So do be aware of that. In some cases, they may not be needed. For instance, you have PDO Firebird, PDO OCI, ODBC, PGSQ as SQLite. You may not want to use those. So in those cases, you are, of course, okay to go ahead and stop those from actually working by simply adding the colon in front of that, just like so, and then that extension will no longer be available for your Scriptcase environment. Now once you're done, you can just carry on scrolling if you like, change the time zone if you need to, make a few other adjustments if you really need to. As I said, it will really depend on your Scriptcase environment, your development environment, should I say. And in general, don't just go and change anything and everything, because you might find that Scriptcase will stop working. So just make those changes that I've done now, and that way you would be able to also upgrade or process, should I say, well, you're going to upgrade anyway, but you'll be able to process those big backups. Now, as I was mentioning at the beginning, it is important to maybe give your environment a bit of a clean, not only to decrease the size of your backups, but then also just to help your Scriptcase development, because scrolling through lots of images to find them, even though you have a search there, could sometimes be a little tiring. And of course, even these themes and everything, give them a clean every so often. And that way, if you don't use the theme, why keep hold of it? Okay, unless of course it's the default theme from Scriptcase. Then in that case, maybe you will want to keep hold of it. Now, with that, I hope that you enjoy the latest version of Scriptcase, because as you see, I've now upgraded this version on my local machine. I've upgraded also my laptop. I am debating whether I upgrade my server, and I did mention in one of my videos previously that I may not be doing so. And I just wanted to clarify that one a little more, because it's not a case of not wanting to, because I really want to. It's a case of my NAS not having 8.2, and I do have 1 or 2 projects deployed on there which, well, would be a little frustrating that they would no longer be supported, because my NAS provider, well, they skipped 8.2 and they went to 8.3. And of course, I totally understand why Scriptcase has gone with 8.2, and I'm very happy for that, because it is actually the version I hope they would have gone for back with 8.0. But going from 7.6, because that was the prior version, well, that was already a ton of work. And now from 8.0 to 8.2, well, or 8.1 to 8.2, well, that's already a lot of work there. Also, as you know, there are depreciations that happen within the code, and there are adjustments and improvements along the way. And Scriptcase is such a big platform, well, I challenge you to vibe code it, because I don't think you'll be able to, even though somebody did vibe code Monday and most of it didn't work. But just a note, vibe coding isn't there yet, and I don't think it will be a long time. So I do hope that you are still using Scriptcase, because it's still an awesome platform and there's still no comparison out there. So with that, I bid you all farewell. I hope you have enjoyed this video. If you have any questions on upgrading your Scriptcase environment, having a new license, whatever it is you need for maybe this process, hit me up down in the description or comments, and well, within the description there's further links there anyway. And of course, there's always the membership that you can sign up for and have free support from me instead of buying golden tickets like Willy Wonka, right? Okay, so with that, thank you very much. I hope you have an awesome weekend, and of course next week I will be returning with Macro Friday, and hopefully a video every week, because why not? I think it's about time, right? Okay, so thanks again, and until the next video.